Morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition, soon to be a part of the Roku television network. Today, I greet you live from the capital city of North Carolina, Raleigh. And before I begin my monologue and something we'll talk about today, I want to remind everyone on World Edition, we talk about global affairs, innovation, and continue to talk about what a post COVID world will be like in terms of the future of our cities, the economy, the foreign policies of nations like the United States of America. But before we begin, I will be basically just telling you that today was my first day during the pandemic that I actually put on my clothes, shaved, and came to my headquarter office where I work. One of my clients, actually, their office. And it was really amazing to me to know the feeling of actually getting into work and driving every day. COVID has changed the way we live. And now, whether we like it or not, we've gotten used to working from home, used to using digital technologies, used to not having to make that 30-minute or 25-minute drive up and back from work. It just made me realize that am I really going to be ready to return back to the normal life that I lived before this pandemic? This is something all of us must look at and evaluate if we're employers, how we will run our companies and our businesses, and how we will live our lives. With that being said, I want to open my monologue very briefly to talk to you about a blog that I just wrote for WRL TechWire last week, one of our leading publications in North Carolina. I'm going to sort of paraphrase what I talked about because I'm having some technology issues and I'm having to go off my memory. But the bottom line is that at the Connected Cities Conference in December, Secretary Jim Weaver of North Carolina said that his top priority was to make broadband, the last mile of broadband in North Carolina, a reality. Now, this was very exciting for many of us attending the conference, which was at the convention center, because the government of the United States is providing $65 billion of broadband connectivity. We talk about broadband in terms of how we're using technologies like StreamYard today, or Zoom, or Microsoft Teams, or how it can help our remote education for our children, or even the ability to work remotely. But what it doesn't do and reflect, or we talk about enough, is how it can make our cities smarter. We've had the Internet of Things talked about on this show. We've had people from NC Riot. But the bottom line is that a smart city, in my opinion, and I challenge the secretary, is to make more awareness of how it benefits the quality of life of our residents. It's not so much about technology and sensors and devices and artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's simply about solving problems. I want to give you an example today before we open up the show. On my own town, Morrisville. Now, I know most of you around the world don't really care about Morrisville, but it's in the Research Triangle. We're a very technology city, savvy city. About 55% of our immigrant our residents are from the nation of India. And we wanted to be a smart city. And we had nothing compared to the bigger cities around us. So what did we do? The first thing we did was we started an assessment. We brought in a consultant to assess our problems. We brought in all of our different departments from planning to engineering to transportation and inspections, and we decided to come up with a smart city plan for our town. And then our CIO, Rick Ralph, started looking for quick wins, sort of like a first down in a football game, where you're looking for those quick wins where you can actually look and see where you can get some sensors deployed, the Internet of Things, the billions of devices that are connected to the Internet. Well, to make a long story short, today we just won a Clean Tech Innovation Award by the RTP Clean Tech Cluster for our Connected Corridors initiative. And this was simply working with a partner called Greenstream, a local North Carolina company that actually put sensors in our parks to notify residents of flooding, which is a problem in our city. We also have the solar array fire station at our Fire Station 1 that actually uses sensors and smart technology to actually look at energy efficiency usage of our buildings, which is leading to more smart building automation and actually helping us reduce the amount of electricity that our first responders use. Now, the third one is a on-demand transit service called the Shuttle, Morrisville Smart Shuttle. And this is powered by an app called Via, where even my 16-year-old son, if his mom isn't home yet from work and I'm busy, he can actually take a shuttle that takes him to 15 different nodes in the city with stations near his house. This has been used tremendously by our citizens, taking traffic off the road, allowing people to go places without having to get in a car and drive. Those are just a few examples, but the reason for my monologue today is to say that any city, wherever you are in the world, can be a smart city. If you're living in the US, you don't have to be an urban city. If we're going to deploy broadband, this is a great opportunity for our secretary to make sure that rural cities are smart cities as well. And if you're in another nation, you can simply start by doing an assessment, identifying your quick wins, and making about solving problems. Every community, every region of the world has their own problems. But we know that we can work together on this show to have a conversation of smart technology, smart cities, and how it can help us reduce our carbon footprint, create the jobs of the future, take off traffic off the roads, and at the end of the day, enhance the quality of our life for citizens and residents. I can't think of a better time than during this pandemic and after this pandemic, when many of us are more used to using digital technology, that we can be smart. Check out my blog at WRL TechWire, Making North Carolina a Smart State, Lessons Learned from the Morrisville Playbook. Now, let's get started. We first of all are going to bring in Mark Lee and other leaders of the show, talking a little softer today because I'm actually in a work setting, but maybe you like the style. I'm not screaming at you. And real quickly, I forgot in my monologue to congratulate Nathan Chen for winning gold medal. I haven't seen it yet. I fell asleep early. Quite exciting that he is a gold medalist. It took a lot of work. Michaela Schiflin getting back on the skis, and it shows that it's no matter how hard you get knocked down, you got to get up and try again. We pray for her. It's been a rough ride for her, and then we'll talk about other events in the world. But Mark, let's start with the first topic of the day before we get to smart cities. Just in terms of, you know, am I going to be able to do this every day? Um, I feel so different today. Um, I swam in the morning, but I'm not at home. I miss my home. I miss the surroundings I'm at. But at the same time, I feel good that I'm away and I can focus on something else. So,
Yeah, we're going to learn the same thing. I think it's going to be on Monday. I need to make a couple of phone calls and double check and make sure and verify that that is the case because I have actually gone into work a couple of times, as y'all know, because I did them live from that venue to the Hayti Heritage Center, which is my part time job. But I know that the education company, which is the company that I work for that does a lot of the helping of the paying of the bills, has actually said they're actually working right now, but some of them, but there is the next wave that'll be starting on this coming Monday. So I'm expecting that I'll be still doing this, but also having some opportunities to actually be in a office setting, but it'll be an in-home office setting. So at least for now, who knows? At some point, as the pandemic loosens up, they may actually do like they're doing with you, call us into an actual physical work environment, which of course would change things in terms of the way things are done and all of that. But right now, it'll be at home, and that shouldn't impact but so much what's going on with our network and all along those lines, because I can definitely work around schedules and work around things that are going on during the time to make things happen, as we have a lot of programming. Fortunately, a lot of it is in the evening time after those work hours, but definitely there is some during the daytime, like what we do at 10 o'clock, and some others, including my own shows on Mondays and Wednesdays. But I'll figure that out and work around them and everything. But definitely, it'll be a new environment because, like I said, I think last year there was some work, and I did manage to maintain what I had to do, even with the network and with that work. But it's been a couple of months since being in the pocket, and we'll be back in the pocket again on Monday. So I can relate to what you're talking about. But I did have a question for you because I see Sasha may be joining us. He looks like he's having some things that are going on, but hopefully he'll turn on the camera and come and join us very shortly and everything. But I did see that you had a school environment that was going on that prompted a student to walk out in your home state, because I know that you didn't get a chance to check all the news items out, but I did find this one out. So between calculus and European history classes at a West Virginia public high school, a 16-year-old Cameron Mays and his classmates were told by their teachers to go to an evangelical Christian revival assembly. When students arrived at the event in the school auditorium, they were instructed to close their eyes, and raise their arms in prayer, is what this particular student said. The teens were asked to give their lives over in the kind of Christian things and all of that. And then the Huntington High School junior sent a text to his father and asked whether this was legal. And the answer, according to the U.S. Constitution, is a no. In fact, the separation of church and states is one of the country's founding basic tenets, noted Huntington High School senior Max Liebert. Just to see that defamed and ignored in such a blatant way is disheartening. So they staged a walkout during their homeroom period on yesterday to protest the assembly, and more than 100 students left their classrooms chanting, "Separate the church and the state, my faith, my choice." And school security apparently turned away reporters who tried to cover the demonstration and all of that. So, and some other student had written down, "My rights are non-negotiable." But I was just wondering your thoughts about this event that apparently happened in your home state, and should we even be thinking in the 21st century about the separation of church and state?
Well, I don't know much about this issue. I have not been able to get any emails the last couple of hours, so a lot of my feeds are not coming in. So I'm just going to tell you that I don't know much. I apologize. Normally, as a host of this show, I'm in tune, but I really got up this morning with not as much. So I'm going to have to depend on you today, if that's okay,
Yeah.
to give me the thing, because I get feeds that come in on my emails, and I'll have to check AP News while I'm online today. But the bottom line is, I do believe it's very important to have a separation of church and state. I think it's a fundamental pillar of our country, and that as President John F. Kennedy said, that we must always honor the separation of church and state. He made a famous speech about that, and I think that in the day, that's why people came to America. If you study the history, they were fleeing rigid religious persecution in countries like England to come to America. And so I find it ironic that our government is now selecting or preferring one religion over the other. I think we should be, respecting and honoring the faiths that we have, but at the same time, not imposing any faith through government. And I think that I don't know how that conversation has changed. Obviously, you have more evangelicals, more that are members of the Republican Party, but you're seeing this across the world, Mark.
Mhm.
In India, with the Hindu Twa effort by Modi, basically saying that India has a Hindu majority. India was always, when my parents grew up, sort of respectful. Well, not they would honor all the religions, even though it's a Hindu majority. You have a lot of Muslims that live in India. You'll have a lot of Christians. So this is something we're seeing across the board, because people can identify with faith, they can identify with religion. Um, we are a Christian country. It's the majority religion in America. We've seen anti-Semitism and things like that, unfortunately, against the Jewish community, Islamic community, especially after 9/11 and all of the different terrorist attacks that have occurred. Then the Islamic community got, tagged and branded. So it's a bit alarming.
It is a bit alarming and everything. I did see that further in the article they had said that that particular community, which has fewer than 50,000 people in southwestern West Virginia, had sparked a broader conversation about whether religious services, voluntary or not, should be allowed during school hours at all. And definitely, it looks like the American Civil Liberties Union of West Virginia and other organizations are plainly saying the answer to this question is also no, and that such events are a clear violation of students' civil rights. As a matter of fact, one of the organizations said it's inappropriate and unconstitutional for the district to offer religious leaders unique access to preach and proselytize students during school hours on school property. And that was coming from the Freedom from Religious Foundation, a nonprofit that promotes the separation of church and state. And they wrote that to that particular school district. So that definitely does look like it's an issue. And like you said, it is a global issue that a lot of people are paying attention to, of a different faiths and different denominations and all of that. And we do know another issue that people have been paying attention to is the vaccine and how that is going and how that is being encouraged. I just read recently that a school in this area, coastal Carolina, meaning down by the coast, had offered students incentives to get COVID vaccines. And I do know they were even offering like job incentives kind of things as well, but to get some of the employers in different restaurants and places vaccines. And definitely that is a way that they are trying to encourage people because, the numbers are still not where we want them to be. I was actually just on a show yesterday evening, and I think that one of the gentlemen was in California, and he was from, I want to say maybe the I want to say either San Diego or Sacramento, and he was actually glad that the masks were about to be coming off. But the other lady that was on that same show, who is a friend of mine, Nancy Burrows, and she's involved in the education system, was saying that their numbers were not where they wanted them to be in that sense. So she did not see a policy of taking off the mask anytime soon in the Los Angeles area. So depending on how your numbers are and depending on how things are going, there seems to be more flexibility or less flexibility on one the mask rule and two the numbers of people that are getting vaccines and all of that. So I know that I've definitely had both of mine. I'm still due for the booster shot, so I've got to get that at some point or another. But I was just wondering your thoughts about: are you expecting to see more masks coming off? Like even when you went into work today, did you see a lot of people still wearing masks? I know that when I walked around my neighborhood, I still see. I would say the vast majority of people wearing masks, but there are some that are not wearing them. And of course, we do know that there are places, including I think here in North Carolina, Johnson County, their school system said that it wasn't a requirement, even though I think they're the sixth largest or the seventh largest, and all along those lines. But it was just fascinating to hear and see that. But I'm just wondering what your observations have been about mask requirements, because we do know that some of the school districts and even some of the cities, like I think New York, is starting to loosen up on masks as well.
Um, I'm seeing less masks being worn. I'm seeing pressure from residents asking for mask mandates to be lifted. I did when I came into work today. I was wearing a mask, but nobody in the office right now that I look at is wearing a mask. Of course, everybody's sort of working at their desk in their offices. Um, so I think it's coming to the point where you're going to start seeing more restrictions lifted, and really hoping this time it's the end of this pandemic, or it just becomes something that we have to live with. I know that in our city council, the biggest problem now is I think people are really afraid of coming to the meetings in person. So we've got these hybrid meetings, but and then virtual meetings. But there's been some complaints, and I would lean on the argument that you just can't have the public involved if you're doing everything virtual. And So I think we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to um, to change that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely see that, and all along those lines. And by the way, two of the favorite people in politics, and I'll just bring up another story, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about it and everything. But Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's down there in Georgia, um, has apparently got into a interesting conversation with a Nancy Pelosi because she's definitely it's not a unknown fact that she has been known to for her love of some conspiracy theories and definitely angry outbursts at certain Democratic leaders, and she apparently meant to accuse House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of Gestapo police tactics in an interview on Tuesday, but it didn't quite come out quite that way. And the mistake she made immediately set off a chorus of delighted ridicule from her critics on social media. Rather than compare Pelosi's tactics to the Nazi secret police, she instead compared them to a bowl of chilled soup. So now we have Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police spying on members of Congress, spying on the legislative work we do, and spying on our staff and spying on American citizens, Green said on the One American News Network's Real America program. So I'm sure that is going all over the internet because of her wanting to make one comparison, a comparison that I don't think is a fair comparison, but then she just totally botched it and made it into some other kind of thing. So definitely people are using that for social media fodder. And I know that you've been involved in politics and have probably seen those kind of things happen in your own life and everything. So, what is your thoughts about one, her trying to even make this comparison of Nancy and the kind of things that go on? Historically speaking, it's almost like something that got Whoopi Goldberg in trouble and everything, and now they're totally botching it, and so now social media is having a field day with it.
Oh yeah, I don't know what she compared her to, but I think it's unprofessional to make these kinds of comparisons. And I think it's just so childish that these political leaders are just trying to hype and dramatize things. And I really apologize, folks. I am just totally blinded with everything in the news today. So I will get my I'm not able to get any emails to my personal email. Let me see what she says.
Yeah, it was just fascinating. And like I said, I think that it was just the fact that she misspoken instead of using the name for the military police of that time frame when we were having World
Oh,
War
the
II.
spotter police. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know anything about this term, but I think it's a perfect example of how we could have so many great things that we could be working on for our country, and we've got this kind of gutter politics where it's just a gladiator sport, and you say anything or do anything, and then you just pick up and you govern. And I know that for me, on a personal note, I came off of a very negative campaign. And yes, a lot of what they said was true in terms of votes I had made for more density and things like that. But it was the way it was done. Um, Taking screenshots of contributions. I did receive some checks from developers, but I never knew at the time that they were coming before a process. But a lot of these people would just put something up there and then throw it out there, so everyone would just make an assumption. And It just to me makes it very hard to govern because now I feel very burned and very tired that I had to deal with this kind of gutter kind of politics, but it's accepted. So people tell me, well, get used to it. That's the way the game is played, right? So anyway,
Yeah, that's where the game is played, and I know that he was probably having some things going on in his life as well. I do see that he's in the studio, so hopefully we'll hear from him in a little bit. But I did notice that the truck blockade in the U.S. Canada border is definitely still having some impact. Some people would say impacts on the supply chain and things along that line because it apparently has shut down an auto plant. So that is definitely some major news. So the truck blockade by Canadians protesting the country's COVID-19 restrictions is tightening its screws on the auto industry and is forcing three major car dealerships or car dealers to shut down their plants. So that would be Ford, Toyota, and General Motors. And they've been forced to either shut down their plants or otherwise curtail production on both sides of the U.S. Canada border. So the bumper to bumper demonstrations entered its fourth day on today at the Ambassador Bridge connecting Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, which has been disrupting the flow of auto parts and other products back and forth across the border. The bridge is the busiest U.S. Canadian border crossing, carrying 25% of all trade between the two countries. So Ford said its Windsor, Ontario engine plant reopened Thursday after being shut down on Wednesday because of a lack of parts. The factory and the company's assembly plant in Oakville, Ontario, near Toronto, are operating at reduced capacity, the automaker said. And one of the quotes that was put out there by Ford was the interruption on the Detroit Windsor Bridge hurts customers, auto workers, suppliers, communities, and companies on both sides of the border. We hope this situation is resolved quickly because it could have widespread impact on all automakers in the U.S. and in Canada. That being said, I was just wondering your thoughts, and I do see that I've got Sasha and you back on and everything. But that being said, I was just wondering, Sasha, what are you hearing about this and everything? And I'd love to hear from both of you your thoughts because I know when Nick was here, we talked about it about disruptive protests. Because, like I said, I do know that I've been involved with some groups that have protested different things, including wanting to have certain kind of prison reforms and things along that line. And they will block a road and they will block traffic, and it can definitely be an aggravation to those that are involved. Not so much in the protest, but those that are involved because they are to some degree the victims of the protest. So I'd love to hear both of your thoughts about this kind of tactic of blocking or stopping traffic, whether it's in Canada, between Canada and the US, whether it's in places in Africa, whether it's wherever it is, because we do know that this is a very popular protest tactic.
Okay, that led to a great destruction and this colossal losses in business, in public confidence, in due process. And that's why, as I said yesterday on the show, and I will repeat it today, the organizers of this and all participants of this bizarre, horrible action have to be punished severely according to Canadian law. And there are remedies available to be applied against these people. And all that has to happen, of course, the sooner the better, but we'll see how the situation will continue to develop. So far, it's nothing but really horrible news for Canada, Canadian people, Canadian economy. And it was inflicted by a small group of people. They have to be dealt with accordingly.
Yeah, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. What are your thoughts about those kind of protest tactics, Steve, and everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then I had another question for Sasha about a economic matter because it's something that I oftentimes hear people about talking about. I know I've not been able to afford any, but it's news coming out of that field. But first, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Steve, about those kind of protest tactics. Steve is busy with the call, so I'll get to the other thing as well. Sasha, one of the things that I saw in the news was that there is gold futures declining on Thursday. It says it is heading for their first loss in 5 sessions after a reading on January inflation here in the U.S. came in higher than expected, raising the prospects for aggressive interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. And I know that you are definitely a student of economies around the world and things of that nature, and definitely a student of investment. Is this something that investors should be concerned about, this possible interest rate hike? And are you concerned about gold futures declining? I know there have been times in my life that I have thought about buying or obtaining some gold. Don't have any in my stock portfolio or in any of my portfolio at all. I don't even think that any of my family members do that I'm aware of. But just wondering your thoughts about gold being on a decline. Is this just a short term thing, or is it something that we need to be worried about?
It could be explained that if there will be indeed higher interest rates, and today's report suggests exactly that, then gold itself is becoming quite an attractive proposition for investment because obviously it doesn't pay any interest. And the only thing is, if you invest instead of gold in gold shares, they may do better, but if gold will go down in price, then gold shares will not perform just as well. So I think for the time being, it's not attractive proposition. It could change any time, but right now I wouldn't suggest that at all. What about stock futures? They already recovered, and actually, I think they're already on the way up. At least those stocks that I'm following, they're all up right now. So, but every investor, unless your investments are in high yielding dividend stocks, you always have to worry because there could be a bad quarterly report, it could be bad overall sentiment to high tech stocks or so on. So, investor, you have to be always worry. High yield dividend stocks, different story. They are very steady um, payers of dividends, at least companies that I own. They're all paying, and they're increasing from time to time dividends, and their stock is going higher. Not not in a way like say Bitcoin, for example,
Mhm.
but Bitcoin is also very risky. Now, high yield dividend stocks, they are okay, everything is risky, but the risk there is so limited. And even if something is going wrong, the dividends will help you to recover very quickly.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. I know another thing that I was really fascinated by and everything was been a lot of talk around the society, around the world, even about the great resignations, people that are basically saying that, they're ready to work from home, work independently as entrepreneurs, basically leave the corporate America. And there's been a whole term that has come out about this called the Great Resignation, where a lot of people are resigning their jobs and things along those lines. I just learned recently, I think I learned it yesterday, that North Carolina is rated seventh among the places that are doing this whole Great Resignation. So out of 50 states, seventh would be pretty high. So apparently we've got a lot of folks that are doing part of this Great Resignation. And the jobless claims fell again for the third straight week. So the jobless claims fell by 16,000 to 223,000 last week, and that was from 239,000 the previous week, according to the Labor Department. So it seems like it's steadily falling down, but I'm also wondering how much of that falling down is impacted by the fact that folks aren't even bothering to report or bothering to even like try to get into the workforce, because a lot of them are seeming to get because they think maybe it's easier, maybe they think that it's something that they can do now, but that they've always wanted to do, and that more people are possibly even looking into entrepreneurship. So when you're seeing these jobless claims, and I don't know if y'all have comparable jobless claims there in Canada, and if they're, because I do know that the Great Resignation is a more of a global term. It's a term that I've heard used not just here in the United States, but also in other parts of the world as well. What is your thoughts when you're hearing about a lot of people? I think a lot of these aren't just young folks; they're folks of all age ranges, all types of demographics that are falling into this concept of a Great Resignation. So, what are your thoughts when you're hearing this term? And do you think that it's going to last for a while? And is it impacting the way that numbers are reported?
Well, if you agree that the corporate world, it's a sophisticated modern form of slavery, which it is, of course. It's a very bureaucratic, very in a way, a dominating system, very autocratic system, nothing to do with democracy or freedom or anything, whatever we discussed in the last program. So it's very understandable decision of many people to escape the actual real slavery, at least to a removed slavery. So okay, you're still slave, but you don't have to see the face of your superior and all those big honchos in corporation or so on. At least you're spare of necessity to see physically their faces. And this is a horrible feeling to see the faces of your superior. So if you could be spared of that and work from home or from forest or from beach or from just anywhere and without seeing those faces, it's a great achievement. And the more people could do it, the better life will be. Their mental health will substantially improve. They will not be abused any time of the day. And that's really the movement which was accelerated by coronavirus, but it's definitely there to stay.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, Steve, what is your thoughts about the Great Resignation? I had mentioned to Sasha that a business leader from here in the Triangle area of North Carolina had revealed in one of her newsletters that she puts out regularly that this state is actually number seven in terms of the Great Resignation, meaning North Carolina, because apparently a whole lot of people are quitting their jobs and not returning to the workforce at a historic rate. And apparently, right here in North Carolina, we are leading the charge, or at least we're in the top 10. But I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about the Great Resignation? And are you hearing a lot of your peers, both here and globally, that are doing the same thing?
You mean just not going? Yeah. Well, I have a few people I know that are out of work, and it's been much harder for them to get work because with COVID, people aren't meeting as much. So having people aren't getting emails returned, things like that. Um, I do see some people that are just very cocky about well, I have a job, particularly in technology,
Hmm.
because I'm in the IT industry. They go, well, I'm not going to really work that hard because if I get fired, I'm going to get unemployment, and then I'm just going to go get another job. So I know a guy that he purposely almost lost his job, and then he got a new job on Monday, double what he made. So the CEOs are really having a hard time keeping retention. Retention is much harder now than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and
So
that's part of what the whole issue is and everything.
the
Because I know
buyer's
that
market. right? Yeah, and I'll give you an example. So, and I'd love to get Sasha's opinion. So, there's a really big company here named Pendo, and they're one of the fastest growing technology companies. And when when you know they asked the CEO, he's been getting asked about a 4-day work week, and he goes, I'm going to do what I can to make it an attractive place to work, but I'm not going to have my folks work only 4 days. I've got and so, but now people are caving into these demands because they want to win the award being the most attractive place to work. How do you keep it fun? What kind of perks are you going to do, right? I think I don't know whether this is going on in Canada, but that's what we're seeing in the US.
Yeah, that's actually a good question that you asked. And I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts about the 4-day work week because I had heard people talking about that even globally and everything. Because actually, there was an article last year that said that a Microsoft survey of more than 30,000 global workers showed that 41% of workers were considered quitting or changing professions during the year of 2021. And a study from an HR software company, Personio, of workers in the UK and Ireland showed 38% of those surveyed plan to quit in the next 6 months to a year. And of course, we do know that a lot of people right here quit their jobs. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons that people are quitting, and some of them are being encouraged to pursue that dream job or transition to being a stay-at-home parent. Actually, I had the pleasure yesterday of interviewing a woman on the online dinner party who is going into her fourth or fifth career, but is being a trucker because apparently a lot of people are actually there's a shortage of truckers, and apparently there are definitely making a push to hire folks that may not have been in that field before, including women, because she gave me some statistics that I was not aware of. But there are a lot of women truckers out there, and definitely they sound like it's a well-paying job, and she has now been doing it. I want to say during the entire pandemic, so she might have started right before the pandemic. But she was even talking about the cost of going to school versus the cost of going to college, because I think she said she paid something like somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. But that was a one-time pay, and then after she paid it off, she was done, and she was making a comparison of that to what she would have done if she had gone. And I think she did go to college because she was an HR professional, but making the comparison of say somebody that's a lawyer or a doctor who has to pay all of that debt back and has the student loans and everything else. So it might be very appealing to somebody to go into something like trucking. But just coming back, looping around to the question, what is your thoughts, Sasha, about 4-day work weekends and the people going into non-traditional jobs?
I think the job market will gravitate toward young, recent graduates. And I think these people are really willing to work hard to make their headway in life or so. And I know people say, I would probably say over 40, I think they're much less enthusiastic to work, and actually, most of them should be fired anyway. So, without waiting until they will tell you that they quit, the right thing to do is just fire them and let them go on the market and find another job and get recent graduates. That's the key to everything. They're eager to work. They have abundance of energy and recent knowledge and training, and just be aware of that fact. You have to just get young blood and get rid of the old one.
Speaking of people that are not getting rid of old jobs and not want to get rid of old jobs, there's talk that Mr. Trump might want to run back for president and everything. And I'm seeing right now, that's why y'all are seeing this perplexed look on my face and everything, that the U.S. president or the former U.S. president, Mr. Trump, has told associates he has remained in contact with North Korea's reclusive leader, Kim Jong-un, since leaving the White House. So does this surprise you at all, Sasha? Because we know that he definitely had a fixation on that relationship is what one New York Times reporter said. And definitely it does look like he has said that he is maintaining contact with that person. And I know a lot of people think that they have similar style personalities. But I was just wondering, are you surprised that he would be still in touch with this world leader that has also had some interesting personality traits, for lack of a better term?
I think Trump admitted a long time ago that he fell in love with Kim Jong Un, and I'm, well, Trump is definitely married, so I don't think that he's in a position to make a proposal to Kim Jong Un. But maybe if he'll get divorced anytime soon, maybe he will make a proposal, and so the love letters are going back and forth. Uh, and I would think that Putin is a pretty good proposition in that respect, but looks like Trump blew away his opportunity, what Putin offered to him. All Trump had to do in order to get response from Putin, the positive response, and actually love letter at the end of the day, was to dismantle NATO. That's where Trump failed. He couldn't do that. So once he couldn't do that, Putin lost any interest in him.
Hmm.
Interesting
Yeah,
thoughts. What is your thoughts, Steve, about this relationship between Kim Jong Un and Mr. Trump? Because apparently they are having this lovely buddy relationship.
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, this guy's a known dictator, done terrible things to the people of North Korea, and to act like you're a friend. I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, maybe he thinks he's gonna be president again, and he's gonna go in there with a relationship. But God, I mean, this guy does not have the United States interest at heart, and I just don't think it's safe for any American, particularly a former president, to be talking with him. And I don't understand how that's even good for security for the United States, because we have another president, and I think it's always been a protocol that I mean, yeah, maybe you keep friends with leaders of the world that you knew. Margaret Thatcher, for example, was a good friend of Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, but you know, uh, yeah, and even Gorbachev to that extent, I guess. But I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's alarming, it's concerning, and you also have to wonder about how that makes Joe Biden's job even harder. President
Speaking
But
of Joe,
you see, we are talking about here wonders of a real love. See, in real love,
real
you just don't justify why you love that person. Why? It's beyond comprehension. You just feel a certain energy juices, and so all your personality is beginning submissive to love to a certain person. So when there is a love like that, nothing it could be logically explained. It's just phenomena, and let them both be happy and prosper, and maybe one day be together.
yeah, that could be a great idea, but we've talked about it even when we've done the Americans' worst presidents. And by the way, Mr. Biden is now on the list, so we'll see what folks respond to in that category and everything. But apparently, President Joe Biden had a interesting moment yesterday where he actually tried to do something that I know we've all said that he's not do a good job of, which is actually showing personality. Because he had a bit of fun of at his predecessor, Donald Trump's expense, when he cracked a joke during a meeting. Yes, they did say he cracked a joke during a meeting with CEOs of electric utilities at the White House on yesterday. And that came when he was discussing wind power as a source of clean energy. He says, are you getting less resistance when you start talking about wind and the windmills? I know they cause cancer. Biden quipped, prompting laughter from the group. Bad joke. I shouldn't kid about that. I shouldn't have kidded. And we do know that Trump has complained about windmills for years and all of that. So, one, what do you think about this attempt by Mr. Biden to try to make a joke? Because apparently he was trying to make a joke and all of that at Mr. Trump's expense. And what is your thoughts about wind energy as a logical alternative to what we have going on in the world? So it's a two-part question. One is attempt at trying to have humor, and two, is the wind a logical option?
Steve, please.
Well, I think wind is, first of all, we have to look at everything going. I was actually going to close out today about climate change, but I might save that till tomorrow. But the bottom line is that with the weather patterns we're seeing, with you know, efforts to address climate change, I think clearly we see that climate change is occurring, and it's because of the carbon we put in the environment. And wind and solar and these things are definitely sustainable solutions that governments should be looking at, and making it easier for individuals to have this kind of infrastructure, to be able to be more renewable in their energy policies, more efficient in their energy policies. But the challenge we face is as we transition to wind and solar, um, and for example, electric vehicles, um, we have to move away our dependence from fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And many states like West Virginia, where Joe Manchin is from, where I'm from, coal is the big driver of the economy. Uh, Coal has been a big part of his political career. He's worked for coal companies, right? He owns a coal company or has made money from that, right? So, how do you shift away economically if you're dependent on fossil fuel? Point number one. Point number two is the infrastructure just isn't there yet for us to turn on wind all over at least in the U.S. I don't know about Canada. We just don't have that infrastructure. So if we move away too quickly from our dependence on fossil fuel, but then we don't have enough of the renewable energy infrastructure, how are we going to survive? Right? Nobody really talks about that. So the most important thing is it comes down to infrastructure. And in the Build Back Better plan, $555 billion was it focused on a lot of these infrastructures, electric vehicle charging stations, wind and solar, and water infrastructure. All of these things have to actually be significant investments and projects that provide us the infrastructure, and that's exactly what Biden is trying to do. This amount that he's asking for is 6 times the amount, I think, or multiple times the amount of any clean energy investment that the United States has ever made. And there'll be new jobs that come from it. Um, but if he moves too fast and he doesn't have the infrastructure in place, you could lose jobs in fossil fuel. And then what are you going to do, Sasha? What are your?
But it's not easy solution situation. You have to get closer to green energy as much as possible. On the other hand, infrastructure is just not there, and you still depend a great deal on fossil fuels, and it's not going to be changed anytime soon. So this is very very difficult question, and I don't think it will be resolved anywhere in the next 10, if not 20 years.
Hey Sasha, what are your thoughts about him trying to show personality by trying to like crack jokes and other things? Because we do know that has been one of the things that folks have said about Sleepy Joe is that he doesn't have the kind of media darling kind of attention that some of our past presidents have had and everything. So apparently, in this particular case, he was trying to have a quick quip and all of that, and I've definitely seen other incidences where he's tried to do that. Sometimes they fall flat. Sometimes they actually get the chuckle that he is looking for. But what is your thoughts about him attempting to maybe lighten his mood?
Well, that's a dilemma. He is transitional president. He's not a real president. He was there to fill the void where Trump was running for second term, which was unacceptable, and that's why he lost. And if you lost to Joe, I think there are at least 3, 4 people in a Democratic primaries who could also beat Donald Trump, but they decided Joe Biden because it's so well known and he's been in politics for the last 150 years. So he's like a compromise figure that is good enough to defeat Donald Trump. Now comes the second term in 24. I don't think that he should go for a re-election at all. He is not capable. He maybe overestimated his strength, his stamina, his biological limitations. So I think now, if he's not running, then who? Who among the Democrats will pick it up? Kamala Harris, out of question. And who else? And you have to look into some people like maybe Amy Klobuchar, maybe Pete Buttigieg, although I don't think the country is ready for someone of his stature. And it's becoming very. Then you have figures like Bernie Sanders, who is even older than Joe Biden, or you have Senator Warren, who has her own problems. and may not be even electable after all. So it's a big question. And then how you do it? You do primaries, but you can do primaries only if Joe Biden will publicly announce that he's not running. And if
Right.
that's the case, he should do it the sooner the better, because at least he will give fighting chance to Democrats in the interim elections this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, and I mean, I think, I brought this up yesterday, and it's just, my monologue on Monday is going to be about President's Day, but we had the worst president show, and I
Mhm.
think the problem is that um, the situation in the United States is so divided that the job of president has become a very tough job, because you go in with already half the country saying, in this case, you're not legitimately elected, the election was rigged. So from day one, no matter what you do, there's opposition, right?
Mhm.
Think about it from President Biden's perspective. The Build Back Better plan, $555 billion going to climate energy to address and put in the infrastructure that's needed so we can move away from fossil fuels, doesn't have the votes to support. So now the question becomes, do you break down the bill in smaller components, healthcare, climate change? But if he doesn't get it passed, he's probably going to lose the House and the Senate, and he's going to be in a situation of gridlock. And then the Republicans are going to come in and go, look, he was ineffective, and they're going to run a campaign. So everything's about the election next year and 2 years after that. It's not about making the country better, getting us through. And so this kind of division, no matter what, is going to occur, whoever the president is. Uh,
And along those same lines, because I was just looking at another story that is going to probably get Mr. Biden, President Biden, into some trouble as well. Because, and I don't know if it's the same kind of situation that goes on in Canada, because I don't know how they deal with pay raises. But apparently, he is proposing a 4% pay raise for federal employees and military service members starting in March. And we do know that that may not exactly go over well with the public either, because some of them might be talking about, I'm having a hard enough time getting my own money, and then you want to basically give a pay raise, and apparently that's going to follow a civilian pay raise that folks got on January 1st, because apparently the civilian federal employees receiving an average of a 2.7% raise at that particular time. So I'm wondering what the general population's views are going to be of these kind of pay raises. And like I said, I don't know if this pay raises of the people in power. And I know that y'all have a different kind of system there in Canada. Is that something that folks even pay attention to? Because I do know that here, folks are oftentimes looking at the pays that either the president gets, or that the Congress gets, or that the federal workers get, and a lot of times that can cause all kinds of issues and concerns with the populace and things along those lines. But is that even a concern in Canada, or do y'all just pretty much
See,
accept that they are getting paid what they're
Canada,
getting?
Canada, everything is on so minuscule, it's on such a, um, I would say, really a scale that you don't even want to waste your time to look into it, really. Because there was, I think 2 years ago, there was a scandal that Trudeau's mother, she was writing some essay, and she was paid, I don't know, I think $2,800 a month or so. So it was considered that it's a corruption. He's paying, of course, her own mother. Somebody else could write that, maybe even better or
well,
worse.
yes.
So this is really, I mean, nothing.
What are your thoughts
Well,
about that, Steve? The whole notion of federal employees, or just employees in general, particularly those that are government employees, getting these pay boosts.
um, you mean in terms of increased pay?
Yes, from our federal employees, and some, because that's something that Mr. Biden is proposing. And I do know that sometimes when the general public hears that, they're going like, "Wait a minute, they're making such and such money, and now you want to add to that." And like we've said on this show before, there are some people that have a hard enough time getting or finding $1,000 in their bank account, or maybe they're keeping it in their sheets.
Well, I think it's a matter of, we need to, make sure that, I believe that we need to pay people what their value is. And I think there's nothing wrong with paying people what they're worth, paying them as much money as you can. And I think it's, It's a matter of making it happen. And it is, you got to work hard for your money, and nothing's going to be easy. Uh, but then again, you know, working for the federal government, it's people that I know one guy. He's been there 30 years, and they said they haven't found him yet. He's hiding in some cubicle out there making. you know, Rufus Edmondson calls them the weebies. We be here when you here. We be here when you leave. you know, and that's the old saying about the government. But government people work very hard, and I can see that. I have a different perspective now on government, especially in the cities. These are people that take pride in their work, and they really value it. Um, for me, like, I make more money now in the private sector, so I don't know whether I would even afford, being able to go and work for a governor or work for someone, because I have my own clients and call my own shots. And now I don't even know if I could go back to a job where I did only one thing, where you're just making one salary and you get your benefits and that's it. I leverage my resources and do different consulting, able to call my own shots. I like it. It's a good quality of life. It's fine, hard to juggle a lot of balls, but my life's changed a lot in 2 years. Look at all the change that we've, that's a good way to close out. I mean, as we uh, tomorrow we'll be talking about the Super Bowl, and my monologue will be devoted to the coveted Vince Lombardi Trophy. And at the end of the day, I think, as I've said, there's two words that describe this pandemic: turbulence and resilience. We've had to be resilient as we've lost over 912,000 citizens of our nation to this terrible pandemic. These are our fathers, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, and this is and our sons and daughters, and this has happened all over the world. And as we navigate through this pandemic, as I said, as I was driving to work this morning, we ask ourselves, what is the new normal? What will the world be like? The future of our jobs, whether we'll be going into work all day, future of our schooling, whether we'll feel comfortable going into restaurants without masks, whether our cities will be thriving, vibrant cities like they've always been. As Fareed Zakaria said, as my final thought is, in 10 lessons of a pandemic world, we knew that this was coming and there will be future pandemics. The question is, what will the effect on the world be? There are decades when nothing happens, and there were weeks or years when decades happened. And in the last 2 years of this country and the world, there's been more change, both negative and positive, than we've ever seen in terms of innovation, the use of digital technology, the kinds of things that are going on, and also the political normalcy, the expectations of our government, and division and democracy, authoritarian versus democracy. The same battles that we fought years ago, even during World War II, we're now fighting today. But as I close out, when I see the Olympics, it reminds me of greatness, seeing the best perform, regardless of their political beliefs, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender. To see a man like Nathan Chan hold the gold medal up, to see Michaela Schifrin get back up even after she's fallen so far as an Olympic champion. The agony of defeat, the thrill of victory. It's something that all of us around the world can enjoy watching and learning from, because we can learn from these Olympic athletes as we continue to navigate through a turbulent time, but also resilience, not only in how we bounce back, but how we bounce forward. Tomorrow, we will kick off our day with preparing for the Super Bowl, the big game. Get the popcorn, the wings, and the nachos ready, and the spinach artichoke chick dip. Happy
Sounds like
Super
it.
Bowl weekend, folks. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll be at PBS next week. Thank you all. May the light and love of our hearts always lift us out of the darkness.
No doubt about that. You're ready to wrap
From our
everything up.
family to yours.
Yeah, from our family to yours, definitely. And as Steve and me get ready to get out of here, just had one other quick thing because we usually do this and I did not get to it today. So, our person of
Oh,
Black History Month
yes.
this week is Madam C.J. Walker, an amazing entrepreneur, philanthropist, and activist. So, definitely go and study her. As a matter of fact, in July of 1912, this was her quote: "I'm a woman who comes from the cotton fields of the South. From there, I was promoted to the wash tub. From there, I was promoted to the cook kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. I have built my own factory on my own ground." So she is definitely an amazing entrepreneur. There have been movies and things that are done about her. So definitely that is our person of the history to look at and to definitely study at and all of that, because she was definitely an amazing woman that did some amazing things some 100 years ago and all along those lines. So definitely study about the history and the life of Madam C.J. Walker. And the other thing that I was going to get to that I didn't get to, but we'll probably get to it tomorrow, is some of the other things that are happening even on the continent. Because I do know that the Sudan was in the news, and Libya, which we know can be a target place in the world, is facing a divided government. And we do know that Libya has some interest in history, including interest in history with
Thank
the
you.
U.S. So we definitely go try to bring that up on tomorrow as well. But right now, let's get on out of here.
Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Mark. Thank you.
Sounds good.